Good morning, everybody. Welcome to an all-new On the Mark TV and radio from Westfield Community Programming, 89.5 FM WSKB, and our media partners at Agawam Media and Southwick Community Television. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach, and in our first half hour, we're going to talk with Keith Fairey from Wayfinders, which is a wonderful nonprofit organization here in Western Massachusetts that helps people secure housing. Their executive director and CEO, Keith Fairey, is with us this morning. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Can you give us a little capsule of some of the projects and programs that Wayfinders is doing and financing and subsidizing in the area?
I sure can. And Wayfinders, with just a little background on us, we founded over 50 years ago with a name called the Housing Allowance Project, which to help people afford housing in our region. Today, we still do that work, but we work across the housing continuum from homelessness to home ownership. So we work on projects and programs to support people and their housing stability, things like helping people get Section 8 vouchers and administering those for the state of Massachusetts, or emergency rental assistance. We also work with homeless families. We provide emergency shelter to 279 homeless families throughout our region. And then we build and manage housing, permanent or long-term affordable housing in our region. Today, we are near completion on our 62-unit project in Agawam, Massachusetts. We're also under construction in Ludlow with a 43-unit project there to create new mixed income housing for those communities. In the coming months, we expect to break ground on projects in South Hadley and Holyoke as well, to add to our portfolio of projects owned and managed by Wayfinders throughout our region. So that's another big way that we try to have impact, not only in helping the individuals, but by creating new opportunities for people to have housing. And then one additional thing I should point out is that we work to advocate for our region, to make sure that the housing needs of Western Massachusetts are well known and understood and addressed by the Commonwealth. So we've been working in coalition with partners across the region in something called the Western Mass Housing Coalition to make sure that those issues are understood and it can help inform housing policy and housing supports from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So in a nutshell, those are some of the things that we do to work across that housing continuum, to help people become homeowners, to help people stay stably housed, and to support our region.
I mean, we hear on the national level that affordable housing is at a premium, and homelessness because of the inability to find housing is bad nationwide. How severe is it in Western Mass?
It's really significant. So one of the things that we did going back in 2021, we worked with the UMass Donahue Institute to do a regional housing study for the Pioneer Valley, so Hampden, Hampshire, and Franklin counties. And lots of data came out of that. The reason we did it is we initiated that work because we were hearing about lots of the dynamics in the housing market that were making it increasingly unaffordable. But there was no definitive information. And so we started to work with the Donahue Institute, and we published a two-phase housing study. But I will tell you the kind of the headline data point that came out of that was it described our housing supply gap, meaning that we did not have enough housing for our region. In 2021, the housing supply gap was pegged at 11,000 units, and it's projected to grow to 19,000 units by 2025. So that challenge then is exacerbated by the fact that we have a lot of old housing stock. We saw housing costs for operations rise. We know this as an owner of housing, the cost of everything from electricity to heating oil and other things that we use all went up. Landlords raised rents. Incomes did not go up in the same way. And that caused a major housing affordability challenges in our region, which were already significant, and in many cases, especially for renters, greater than what we were seeing in the Commonwealth overall. Western Mass has always been thought of as more affordable. That's if you look at it with a Eastern Massachusetts wallet, right? But if you look at it with a Western Mass wallet, we find that we have higher cost burden rates than the Commonwealth overall. And for those people who are paying even more than 50% of their income toward their housing costs. So it is a big challenge in our region right now, and we see it every day because people come to us for emergency rental assistance. And we get hundreds of applications per month for that assistance. And we try to meet as much of that need as possible, but it is a real challenge. And the other thing I'll just say before I pause here is that we're seeing it from communities that we did not see before COVID. So whether it be from significant numbers from a range of communities, people often think about our gateway cities, places where there's housing affordability challenges and increased poverty, but we're seeing it in our suburban communities as well, and even in our rural communities, unprecedented demand for emergency rental assistance and emergency mortgage assistance.
How many people can apply versus how many people can you accommodate, and where do you get the money to help them?
Sure. So one of the programs that we run is called the Residential Assistance for Families in Transition Program. It's a state program is funded through this annual state budget. In fiscal year 20, that program was about a $22 million state program. So the state of Massachusetts had the foresight to have that kind of program to help low-income homeowners and low-income renters who ran into financial difficulties. And Wayfinders in 2020 got about $2 million. We helped somewhere between 800 and 900 families. The pandemic hits, and there's a real desire and need and interest as people are losing jobs and losing hours and so on to keep people housed during the pandemic. There's huge federal funds to come forward. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts puts on an eviction moratorium in place. That said, landlords still need to get paid when people aren't getting paid. So the Commonwealth greatly expanded that program. And the budget that just passed, the budget for that program is now $197 million. And we get a much larger share of that. Prior years, prior to the pandemic, we'd run out of money every year. We're getting close to, we hit those numbers. We get to that 197 million, but we get a much greater share of that. Last year, I think we helped about 7,000 households.
In terms of finding housing stock for these people that are displaced or can't afford to live, are you able to? I know you're building certain projects to get them into. What is the opportunity to renovate, for example, some of these old and closed schools or factories up and down the valley? Can they be renovated into housing? Can you make a difference in that area? Where do you come up with the new stock to put people?
Sure, I think there's a couple of solutions in terms of the stock issue that you raise here. One of the things that I think most of us know is that we have really old housing stock here and really old buildings in our region. We actually have older housing stock on average in our communities than the Commonwealth overall, which has leads to a lot of buildings going to being shuttered. So existing buildings, even existing housing, being shuttered in some communities and that being used. So there's a couple of things that we're working on some projects that we're renovating existing buildings. We're also advocating with the state for more money to do that kind of work. In the housing bond bill that was passed, which was a generational investment, over $5 billion. There are some new programs and new initiatives that will be coming forward around commercial conversion of some buildings to housing, and some resources for that, both to assess whether or not they can be used for that purpose, and then providing some additional capital to actually make those renovations happen. What we are seeing right now is there is an increasing amount of renovation happening in some of our locales because of the high demand for housing. And so if people, so we are seeing some landlords putting units back online that were offline, and that's helping somewhat, but it's not nearly what we need. So we need to do more on the rehabilitation and preservation end, as well as, and as you were talking about, identifying also new stock out of things like commercial buildings that are underutilized or shuttered. And then we just need to build more new. So all of the above is what we really need to be doing. We are doing, but not at the scale yet that we need to.
If I were a business owner and I had a vacant building and wanted to turn it into housing stock, can you help make that happen?
Potentially, depends on the situation. The building owner would want to partner with us, uh, sometime, or if they would want to sell to us to do that. We do all different types of ways that we can kind of effectuate that kind of change. We are working on some projects in Holyoke right now that are a few years out, but where we're acquiring former commercial buildings that it either had offices or other uses, and we're going to planning to convert those to housing. So developers like us are out here and working and happy to have conversations like that if there can be partnerships or ways to reinvest in that stock.
I know that you get a lot of state and federal funding for the projects that you do, but do you get local community support either through donations or corporate sponsorships?
We get support in lots of different ways from the communities in which we work. Sometimes they support our projects, sometimes they support our programs, sometimes localities will stand up programs that are similar to some of the state programs that provide more support to communities in need in their cities or towns. And so we work. We get resources like that. We also get resources and support from individuals and institutions that help advance our work. There's lots of different ways that people can invest in housing and in supporting our work and the work of other organizations. I want to say that Wayfinders is one of many organizations that do this work in our region, where we work in a pretty wide geography, wider than some other organizations, but we have ways that also that people who work with us can get a return on their investment. So one of those ways is through the community investment tax credit. For organizations like Wayfinders, we're called a community development corporation, and there are a few of them out here in Western Massachusetts. If you wanted to grant money to a community development corporation, it was more than $1,000, you get a 50% tax credit. For 50% of what you have $1,000, you get a tax credit for half of that money that you can use to reduce your tax liability. We've also worked recently with a church in Northampton, Edwards Church, who has provided us with a very low interest loan, help us pay for pre-development on projects that we have. So that's the early cost of design and evaluating a site for development, which are before the big money comes in to actually build it. And so Edwards Church wanted to have an impact in our region, and so they provided us with a low interest loan to help support our work doing that. So those are a couple of ways that we see people getting involved that are institutions and individuals with our work, as well as cities and towns.
That's kind of a unique partnership for a church, which is also a nonprofit, partnering with you, which is a nonprofit. Are there any other unique partnerships like that that you're working with?
Sure, we do lots in partnership and collaboration throughout the region. I'll say also the Episcopal Diocese of Springfield also supports us in a similar way. And then we are working right now on a project in the city of Springfield that's around, back to the point we were just talking about, in terms of renovating homes that were blighted and abandoned in most cases. And so we have a pilot initiative we're working on right now called the City of Homes, where we're identifying those properties, working with the city, and getting support from the city, getting support from Bay State Health, and our big supporter there is Mass Mutual, and renovating those homes and preparing them for affordable sale to first-time home buyers. A lot of these homes would go into hands of people who might renovate them, but keep them as rental properties, but they had been home ownership properties. And we want to make sure some of those properties return to home ownership because we see the value of home ownership in terms of building family wealth and generational wealth, and the impact on a community when you have homeowners. Renters care about the communities, and homeowners do as well. And we want to make sure we're creating those kind of home ownership opportunities. So we're piloting in Springfield and hoping to do more of that in other communities in our region. And so we do that in partnership. It's a collaboration with the city, with those other entities who also see the foresight of doing that kind of work.
Okay, how many people work with Wayfinders, and what kind of annual budget do you have? Because you're doing a lot of work.
We do. When I started, I became the CEO of Wayfinders in July of 2020. Between full and part-time staff, we had about 240 people working for us then, and they're spread throughout the region. Today, we have over 350 people working for us. So we've grown significantly because the need continues to grow, and the opportunities do as well. And so these are people who do everything from maintain our buildings that we have in the region, to provide programmatic support, to work with different cities and towns on different development projects. So it's a really wide range of colleagues that I have that are helping us meet our mission every day.
And you arrived right during the pandemic to steer the organization. How did the Wayfinders suffer during the pandemic, or were they able to go through and pretty much move forward?
Yeah, it's a great question, something that we talk about a lot, and that I'm really grateful for. First of all, I came into an organization that was already well run and had a great track record, and my predecessor had done terrific work. But it was a new time. The pandemic challenged us all in new ways, from what it was like to go to work virtually or in person with a mask on, and everyone was concerned about their health and the impact there. So it really challenged the organization. We had significant early challenges in terms of adapting to that, but we did. And it really ended us saying, this is the way we always do it. And it required us to kind of continuously improve the work that we do. And that's what we do, continue to do today. So that's one of the big lessons learned from us. We might try something and realize it's not working. We don't keep banging our heads against the same wall anymore. We then look for new solutions. But it is challenging for staff, because one of the things that was happening during the pandemic, as I was mentioning earlier, there was a lot of government resources flowing, federal government resources, local government resources, new programs, all sound wonderful. But to stand up these new programs, to train people on how to operate them, to support the community and getting access to them is a significant undertaking. And it seemed like to us, if it wasn't a new program, it was a program change. It was happening, it seemed, every couple of months. And so that was a really challenging time for our staff. And today, the big challenge is just that because of all of the work that we did then and the expanded work that we do now, more and more people come to us. And it's just the sheer volume of need is surprising to me, given the fact that we're seeing other economic indicators that show, inflation is coming down, there are more jobs out there, but the housing need and the housing challenges remain.
How did you find Wayfinders, or how did Wayfinders find you?
Oh, so I was living here in Western Massachusetts, but I was working nationally for a national nonprofit affordable housing and community development organization called Enterprise Community Partners. And I worked for them for about 15 years, traveling all around the country, working with cities and towns and states around housing finance, housing policy. I was tired of getting on a plane every day or every week and traveling around. And I'd come to learn about Wayfinders, and my predecessor announced his plans to retire in December of 2019. And I threw my hat in the ring at that point. And by July, I was sitting in that seat, helping steward the organization. So I was glad to be off a plane. Before, I used to say that people knew me best around here were the parking attendants at Bradley Airport, but now I know a few more people. So.
Before we take a break to acknowledge the underwriters that make our programming possible, how can people find out about Wayfinders online or through social media?
Yeah, the best way is to go to our website, wayfinders.org. We actually just did a new great website revamp informed by our clients and our staff, and we think it's a really useful tool. That's the best way to find out.
Okay, we're going to take a break here, as I said, to acknowledge our underwriters, and we'll be back to talk more with Keith Fairey from Wayfinders. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach. Don't go away.
Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield.
Hi, it's Bob Plass, and I have Wow, It's Tuesday, every Tuesday, 6 to 8. Wow, it's Tuesday.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
I did it!
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to On the Mark, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. If you've missed a part of today's programming, or you want to watch it or share it with friends, it's archived on YouTube under WSKB Community Radio. This half hour, we're chatting with Keith Fairey from Wayfinders, which helps people find and develop housing throughout Western Massachusetts. Keith, we got an election coming up, and I know the government supports programs like yours with a lot of funding and other kinds of support. Can you determine at this point which future administration might be more supportive or has an open ear to the issues you face on a national level?
Well, one of the things that we are seeing is that housing is on the federal agenda, on the presidential agenda. I think both are responding in some ways. I think there's a little bit more that I was hearing coming out of the Democratic convention about the need to build more housing and to address housing affordability across the country. The issues that we're facing here in the Commonwealth and Western Massachusetts are not unique, so it is a national issue. As I mentioned previously, I worked on housing nationally for a long time, and prior to that in New York City. And one of the things that we would always talk about was trying to get housing as a top tier issue, an above the fold issue, like healthcare, like education. For better or worse, it is now there. It is, and so I think any administration coming forward, just like we saw in the race for governor here in Massachusetts, when I was looking at the candidates, obviously Governor Maura Healey won that and became governor, but all candidates, Democrat and Republican, had housing as a top tier issue when I looked at for them. Now, the different strategies that people will take, but the point being that government has a key role to play, and there's different ways to do it. There's tax incentives, there's subsidy funding, there's different policies that can enable more housing to be created. So I think it'll be interesting to see how in the coming weeks, when there's hopefully some more clarity around policy. But what I did see coming out of the DNC, Democratic National Convention, there was a few more details than I've heard at the Republican convention.
What makes the conversion of unoccupied housing stock, what makes it a benefit to the landlord to turn a vacant house that he or she might own into housing stock? What kind of tax benefits or other benefits, aside from community spirit, does it afford?
Sure. Yeah, I think, well, one, I think if you are you reinvest, you're increasing your the value of your property, and it does have a community impact too, because if you have a vacant or blighted property proximate to other properties, it's pulling down values in your community, and having a negative effect not only on your wealth but on other people around you. It also has an impact on your tax rolls locally. And then for someone who owns a building, putting it back into service, there's such a high demand for housing right now at all income levels, not just people who are the lowest income, but we see people at all different income levels. And that's what our housing study with the Donahue Institute showed, that it wasn't just the lowest income people who were struggling. It was middle income people and people, even as you go up the income ladder, that can't find enough housing in our region. So I think you'll find quality tenants or quality people to buy your home today because of the lack of supply. And so I think and we're seeing great appreciation as well in housing. I think people can, from a purely selfish standpoint, by making that investment, you'll be able to benefit from the appreciation one way or the other of your home.
And I know the housing market is very strong in Western Mass. If you put a house up for sale, it can sell in seconds, and people are often getting more than the sale price of their homes. Does this inhibit the kind of work that you're doing?
It definitely, well, a couple of things about the housing market to the point you're talking about. That kind of short time on the market is evidence of of the lack of supply. There's just we have historically low vacancy rates and low supply availability right now. And so it does inhibit our work. We have people who we work with who want to become home buyers, and they're really challenged to compete in this market. There are very few programs today and very few development projects that are building kind of starter homes for folks. And so what we're seeing in a market where there's so much demand is that when you're paying above asking price and you're seeing things move like that, people are trying to break in. It's really hard for people who want to become homeowners. And we see people struggle with that. We are seeing people have some success in some communities, but increasingly it's harder and harder for people to break into the housing market who want to move from renter to homeowner.
Is this a new phenomenon? Before the pandemic, it seemed that there were in my town, there seemed to be a lot of houses up for sale for longer periods of time. But as New Yorkers and Bostonians realized they could work remotely, a lot of them came up and bought up some of the housing. So is this a new problem, or was it always a problem?
It's a new problem made worse by it's a little bit of both. So it's a new problem in terms of the severity of it right now. It was a kind of a problem, an emergent problem leading up to the pandemic, in that we were not creating what I was talking about. We weren't creating these starter homes, right? So what was happening is some of our home prices were suppressed. We also had historically low interest rates then, right? So people, if you sold your home, you're going to get a new one. If you're going to buy a new one, you could find one with the sales proceeds and get in a low interest rate, maybe even lower than what you had. Today, uh, if you want to sell your home, and even with that great appreciation, the challenge would be the interest rate environment too, and buying a home that's going to be much more expensive out there. So this lack of opportunity in the market right now is challenging people at all income levels. So most people, the reason why we don't have more stock like we used to available is because people are staying put. If I sell my home, where am I going to go? What can I afford at these interest rates? When they're used to looking at interest rates anywhere from 2 to 4%, and now they're talking at interest rates to 6 to 7%. That could change, hopefully soon. The Fed is saying that they're going to take action in reducing interest rates, given the success that they've had in reducing inflation. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
There was talk, or there is talk, about east-west rail going from Pittsfield and Springfield to Boston. And if that happens, Boston will be more accessible from this area. And since the rents and cost of living in Boston is so high, that people will move west. Do you think that will have a negative impact on what's already here in terms of housing supply?
Maybe it's still going to be. It's not going to be the shortest trip still. I think the impact that you were talking about before during the pandemic with remote work and the kind of the change in how we work and where we work is probably even bigger than East-West Rail in my opinion. And it's here now. It's going to be hard to see what the frequency of that's going to be. I know there's plans for multi-billion-dollar investment to make that happen over several years. And I think what'll hopefully be important there is the opening up our region to more proximate regions like Worcester and others that could work. You could see people more regularly commuting. It's to be determined in my mind the impact of that. I think the remote work and other things are having a bigger impact on the market right now.
Well, Keith, I want to thank you for joining us today. Before you go, what's the website and social media opportunities for people to learn more about Wayfinders?
Sure. You can find us on Facebook and LinkedIn, but you can also, if you want to know more about our programs or about our staff, you can please go to wayfinders.org. That's www.wayfinders.org.
Well, Keith Fairey from Wayfinders, thank you so much for being here. And I want to thank your colleagues, John Bidwell and Mark Latanzi, for helping to arrange this interview today.
Thanks for the opportunity, and thanks for mentioning my great colleagues there.
Okay. Thank you for being here. We're going to take a break to acknowledge our underwriters, and we'll be back with more On the Mark. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Underwriting support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Greater Westfield Chamber of Commerce, the voice of business for the Greater Westfield communities. Informing, educating, advocating, the Chamber provides opportunities for members to make meaningful connections on local, regional, and state levels. For more information on the Chamber's many events, workshops, and programs, as well as the benefits of membership, visit westfieldbiz.org. The Chamber focuses on the most important economy, yours.
I'm Mark Auerbach. Join me every Friday at 8 a.m. for Arts Beat, where you'll meet interesting actors, directors, designers, and musicians here in Western New England.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to On the Mark, everyone. I'm Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. And this half hour, we get to chat with Bo Sullivan from the Boys and Girls Club of Westfield. Summer's over and school's back in session, Bo.
Yep.
What are some of the fall programs that you're going to be offering?
Oh, everything. We have what we call Kids Club. It's our licensed childcare. From preschool 2.9 all the way up through 12 years old are part of a licensed child care program. So there'll be a couple hundred kids running around doing that, divided up by grade, and they do everything from homework help to technology to swimming to outside on playgrounds. Everything will be done. And then we have our teen center also, which is everybody above that, above those grades. So basically middle school, high school, which is going to be a big part of it. So it's going to be a very, very busy school year, which is great.
I'm sure that there are a lot of parents that are worrying about how they can juggle their work careers with their kids. And is it too late for parents to get their kids involved?
Not at all. You can either go to our website, bgcwestfield.org, or call us and ask for Kelly Brown, who most people in this town know, but you can call 562-2301. It's easier just to go on the website and ask her, and she can set you up with however old the student is, all the way up, like I said, through high school. So, and we're open till 5:30 at night. You open up at 7:30 in the morning, 5:30 at night. So we certainly deal with work schedules from parents.
So is this school year different from last year?
Not really. No, it's on our end. It'll be more. There'll be more programs. The drama program that we have is taking off, which is great. So there'll be a couple shows that we're doing. So there's been some enhancements in some of the things we've done, but the full year with the pool going, which is great for us. There'll be more things to do there, and dance on the side, and there'll be basketball. We're rolling with pretty much everything. We'll tweak here and there, but the basics that go on every day are pretty much the same as they have been for the last couple of years.
And it's a great community resource, and it's been around for a long time.
1969. We're about this year will be 55 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it just seems like we just had the 50th gala, it seems like, but that was the last thing before the world shut down with COVID. We had it on that February, it was leap year, February 29th, and everything shut down within the next couple of weeks. So, yeah, it was 5 years ago. So, yeah, 55 years.
Wow, time flies.
Time flies.
And in the time that you've been there, what kind of programs and services have you been able to expand beyond what the Boys and Girls Club was before?
The first one I think of is that drama program. We've had a drama program for years, but Devereaux, who runs it for us, who's also our education director, has really taken hold of this, and we're up to more than 60 for each of the performances we did last year. This year she's going to do 2. I know I can say it because I think she put it on Facebook, High School Musical Junior, will be the first one we do. So tryouts are in the next couple weeks. So if you've got a kid out there that has always wanted to be on stage or has thought about being on stage, or somebody thinks it'll be good for them, because it is everything, meeting friends, being in front of people, learning lines, singing, talking, whatever it is. I mean, you know better than anybody.
Yeah, one thing that's great about drama or theater programs or music programs is that it teaches kids to work in a group.
Yep.
And how to lead or how to be part of an ensemble. It's a great life experience.
We get more letters and comments after a show has wrapped from parents who say, we never thought our kid would be able to do this. We're so glad he or she did, because it brought out somebody different in them and the friendships they made. That the people that they would never meet. You'd never think you'd hang around with them ever in school or anything like that. They see each other on stage. They see each other a couple times a week, and they become fast friends. And then they do the next one. They do it again.
It's funny. When I was a child, I was in the musical Oliver.
Yep.
My mother pushed me into it. When I was a working actor, I was in Oliver. And about 5 years ago, I went to a production of it at Goodspeed down in Connecticut.
Yep.
And I ran into people that I knew, and they said, well, when I was in the 7th grade, I did Oliver. Or when I was in the 3rd grade, I did Oliver. And as a result of it, I appreciate the arts in my life. I go to the theater. I go to concerts and things. So to me, the idea that young people are learning theater and music is a great life skill.
I'm with you. I grew up in the theater with my dad, the Westfield Theater Group, really. My dad, since I was 3 years old, was on stage. My mom did the ticket booth. My dad was on stage, and then all the kids eventually, except for me, got on stage and had parts in some of the plays. So I think it's great. So every time I have to okay the show, because I have to sign the contracts, I want them to do My Fair Lady or something like that, but they're just not going to go back that far, Mark.
Well, I mean, I think for kids, My Fair Lady is a stretch, but there certainly is a lot of plays and musicals available, and now some of the shows, like High School Musical, do a junior edition.
That's what they all are, junior editions.
Which makes it more accessible for young people.
Yep. We did Willy Wonka Jr. They started Shrek. Unfortunately, they never got to perform it. That was right at the time of the pandemic.
So you know that they're doing High School Musical Junior. What's the other play?
I don't know, and I'm not sure she has even picked it yet. So I'm not even not telling you. I honestly don't know.
So we'll call it I Don't Know Junior.
I Don't Know Junior.
Yeah. When does that performance happen?
I believe the performance will be just before Thanksgiving. I think it's the weekend before Thanksgiving is when the show. We actually rent out the middle school, so we use their stage, and obviously the audience and can be bigger there than we could do anything in the club. But they'll start rehearsals, so they'll have a good 3 months worth of 2 months worth of rehearsals to get ready for this. So
that's a kind of unique after-school program for kids. What are some of the others that are unique that you do that can't be found elsewhere?
Well, obviously dance can be found elsewhere, but we've got a robust dance program. Mallory, who's been doing it for years for us, has really taken this one over, and they go all over. They're in national competitions. They were at, I believe it was either the Mohegan or Foxwoods where the nationals were this year for her group, and they do a fantastic job. A lot of the dancers are also in the drama, so they've got stuff that's going on each weekday afternoon. But the swim team is coming back this year. Kayla, our aquatics director, is restarting the Rapids, our team. So we haven't had that team for quite a few years. It was actually a couple of years before COVID that we lost that team. But she's got enough interest that she's going to start it up again. So the pool will be used
That's fantastic.
every day. Yeah, it's great.
I mean, for a lot of these programs are free to the
Some of them are. There's small fees for some of them because we've got to pay, the licensing fee for High School Musical Junior. So there's a small fee for each of those, and the dance program has some too because there's costumes and there's travel and you got to book so there's some small fees, but there's certainly not. And if somebody has a question on the fees, that's where Kelly and I get involved, and we make sure if somebody wants to be on the swim team, we'll make sure they're on the swim team.
With the expanded programs and the increased programs that you do, who pays for it?
Well, the licensed childcare is licensed through the state, so that big portion of it that runs every single school day is run through the state. We get so much money per student that's in our in the program. We have a license of 300, so we can get up to 300 students, which includes 60 preschool. We just added another preschool room. Back to your question about what's new, we added another 20 student preschool. So if somebody's got a preschool student out there, 2.9 to 5 years old, and you're looking for a preschool, give us a call, because there's only a couple spots open, but we do have a couple openings. So that's a lot of it. We do a lot of grants. We obviously have a golf tournament. We do special events. There's a one campaign that we run that we call a one campaign. It's our annual campaign. We're starting up in the next couple weeks, so that will be another portion of what pays for it too.
As the head of a not-for-profit in Greater Westfield, what are the challenges that all the nonprofits in town face right now?
It's always funding. There's and if Andrea from the Y was sitting next to me, she'd tell you the same thing. I think is that Westfield is very, very generous. They are. The donors that we have are with us, and she would say the same thing. They're great to us and do what they can. It's always expanding that base to get more people in and know what we do. It's always what it is. They know they know the logo of the Boys and Girls Club, the Knuckles as we call them. The recognition rate on that nationally, they said, was like 93%. They see the Knuckles, that's the Boys and Girls Club. Only 60% of the people know what actually happens inside the building. And that's the issue. That's where I have to do a better job, is to get people in there and talk like this and educate people about, we do all that. There's a gym and a swim is the old line with Boys and Girls Club. There's so much more. There's a whole technology room. I have 32 computers in a technology room. I have 7 3D printers. They're doing things every day. I've got a full studio. Pete put together my recording studio in the building. It's audio visual. We could run this program from my studio at the club. There's music lessons. There's a whole gaming room. My team director won a $30,000 grant for gaming. There's all sorts of computers and lights, and they play against other Boys and Girls Clubs, and they play people from all over the world, because how gaming works, which is above my level.
It's not part of my...
It's not mine either, but they love it. We feed everybody. There's a full commercial kitchen in there, too. So if you need breakfast for the preschool, or you need a snack or dinner for after school, we feed everybody who comes through the door. So there's lots of things that go on in that building that some people just don't know about.
Where do you get the food? I had heard that you buy a lot of local...
We try to buy as much local as we can, especially the produce. We'll go to local farm stands and buy the produce right out of the building and pay for it that way. We do have trucks. Thurston, they were there when I left. So she's getting ready. Kim, who runs the kitchen for us, is getting ready for school for the 2 days left in the week, and then all of next week she'll have enough food to feed everybody. So we try to do the best we can buying local. If we get a specialized grant, which we've had through the United Way, we will buy everything from the butcher block, Big Y, and the local farms to package everything to send home with families. So we do our best.
And talking about that little studio that Pete Cole set up,
yep.
Are you training kids to do what you and I do as a career?
Absolutely. There's some kids in there recording their own. They're doing podcasts. They're on YouTube. There's all sorts of things that are going on, and it's a busy place. It's another one of those ones that people are fascinated by it, and they want to learn more about it.
Yeah, because there's so many young people that are coming up the ranks that want to learn broadcasting and podcasting and journalism.
Yep, and that's what it is. It's not just what we're doing now, but it's what Pete's doing also. They're sitting behind the board and learning how to produce a show also, so they get a taste of everything that goes on in some kind of broadcast.
And if they want to pursue it as a career, they're getting a good starting point at the Boys and Girls Club.
Absolutely.
You're probably outside of here at Westfield Technical Academy, where we have this great studio that some of the kids utilize. You're, I guess, the only other game in town where people can learn.
As far as I know, I think you're absolutely right. For that, I mean, there's 4 mics on ours, and there's a board, and there's cameras, so there's everything that they need. And like the way Pete hooked it up, like I said, we could go live on Channel 15 like you guys do. So it's all there for the taking, for the learning, for doing what they want to do.
I'm thinking we should bring one of our shows to tape there with some of your kids.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll get Charisse, who runs the after-school program, the license program, and Kelly, and we can do the whole thing.
We could do a fun thing. We've been taking the show out on the road. We went in the spring to Barnes and did a show with the aviation students from Westfield Technical Academy.
Great program.
And Stefan Zaporowski.
Well, we could do the high school musical kids. I mean, we could tie it all into to Mark Auerbach here, and then you could talk to all the performers too.
Well, I love talking to performers, and especially young performers, and why they do it. So that's a plan.
There you go. Let me know. We could set that up. I'll get Dev, who runs that whole drama program. We'll do the whole thing.
I wonder if any of those kids sitting behind the mic you've had a radio career. I have one. I wonder if they'll ever be the people to follow us in the industry.
I hope so. I started when I was in middle school. I started with my dad calling high school football games. And so I did it for a long, long time, but I hope that there's somebody out there that can give it a run. It's a different business than when we first started.
It sure is. We'll talk about that more when we come back, but we are going to acknowledge the underwriters that make On the Mark and other programming here available to you either on Westfield Community Programming, 89.5 FM WSKB, Agawam Media, or Southwick Community Television. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach, and we'll return after these announcements.
Underwriting for Community Radio on WSKB is brought to you in part by Rockies. Over 30 convenient locations throughout Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Connecticut, and Florida. One of the nation's largest ACE dealers. Expertise and great product selection in paint, hardware, lawn and garden. That's Rockies. Rock solid service since 1926. On the web at rockies.com. Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Listen to me, Michael Buster McMahon, Mondays 8 to 10 a.m. to learn the stories behind your favorite songs. Or don't. I'm not the boss of you.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to On the Mark, everyone. I'm Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. If you missed a part of today's program or you want to watch it again or share it with friends, it's archived on WSKB Community Radio's YouTube page. My guest this half hour is Bo Sullivan, frequent guest on programs here at Westfield Community Programming. He's the director of the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Westfield. He's an old radio guy like myself.
Have I qualified as that now? I'm an old radio guy. I like that.
I mean,
I don't mind that.
New radio guys are computers that program music. Yeah, it's true. Right? We're kind of the last of a generation, maybe, of...
I like to say when radio was fun.
Yeah, it's
really
still fun. But now that the world of podcasting has come into being and anybody can be on the air, it's a little different world.
Yeah, it is. It is. From when I started back in, when I graduated college, so 1989, just down the street here at WNNZ with Kurt and Seal. It's a completely. I had carts, and turntables. We're actually playing records.
Yeah, I did. I did an arts program for Kurt and Seal.
Yeah.
I guess it would be the late '80s.
Yeah.
Because I was at WSPR before that with Michael Harrison.
Oh yeah.
Doing news and music, and it was a different time.
It was a different time, I hate saying it, and I hate when my kids say it to me. But back in the day, I just think it was more fun. I really do. We got involved. We got outside. We got to meet people. You got to go do events, take the show on the road or something like that. But I don't know. They just don't seem to do that as much anymore.
Pete Coles and I have done it with ArtsBeat. This summer we went to the Mahawi Theater in Great Barrington and shot a couple of shows, and we did some at Chester Theater.
Yep.
And then, as I said, for this particular program, we went out to Barnes and filmed 3 shows.
Yeah.
I used to do it all the time. I remember working for WSPR and having a booth in the Massachusetts building of the Big E and morning anchoring every morning from the Big E for 12 days.
I remember doing it too. We got up with the cows, and you knew the security guard to let you in the building or on the grounds. And we used to do the morning show from there.
And, I would be interviewing people that from the world of country music that I knew nothing about. The only one I remember interviewing was Tom Wopat because he had been on the Dukes of Hazzard, which I had seen. But I just found, one day I'm standing in the middle of Robinson's Racing Pigs doing a stand-up and, interviewing a politician because it was always election season or talking to somebody who grew Maine potatoes and things like that. We don't have this opportunity to do that anymore in this world. But on the other hand, with Zoom and great technology, I can interview people from all over the world.
Right, and that is one thing that we don't do. I mean, phones were fine, but the technology today, you wouldn't even know the person's in Europe or something like that, and because it sounds so great. But you can't beat the Joey Chitwood Thrill Show when I was sitting there and they were practicing. Oh my God, they were the loudest people around, and it was crazy, but it was fun.
Yeah, well, you and me and Pete Coles grew up in this industry, and there are other people that we knew in the industry that are still sort of doing it.
Oh yeah,
and we do it because it's a great place to be.
It is, and it's fun. It's
fun.
I never worked. Everybody always said, "How do you get up at 3 o'clock in the morning?" I said, "I wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it."
Yeah,
because it was crazy.
I got up when I was at WFCR, and I was mostly behind the scenes in NPR world, but I did anchor some of the fund drives.
Oh, yeah.
For Morning Edition. And I'd have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to be in the studio in Amherst by 5. I knew there were 2 places to get fresh coffee on the road up. And one was a mobile station on Columbus Avenue in Springfield. And the other was the 24-hour Dunkin' Donuts.
Of course.
Route 9 in Hadley.
There was always one of those.
It was like clockwork.
Yep.
I mean, every day.
At the end of it, we got smart and bought our own coffee maker. So I was there early enough, made the pot of coffee, and that was usually pretty good. But we would pull up. There's a 24-hour Dunkin' Donuts in West Springfield too that I would stop at. I would just say, "Hey," and they knew it was me, and I'd pull around, and my coffee and newspaper at that point, because they would sell me a newspaper, was all ready waiting for me.
Yeah, because in order to do the morning news, you had to have a local copy of the Republican and maybe the Reminder and the Westfield News.
Yep, absolutely. And you got them all, and that was fine. And there was, Ron Russell back in the day had every newspaper in the world that he could get his hands on as right in.
The other thing is when we had to go out and do a remote, how different the technology was. I mean, I can recall having to cover a chlorine gas leak on the tracks in Springfield.
Yeah.
And I had to plug into somebody else's phone.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even remember the name of the restaurant that was on the corner to phone in a radio piece because we barely had working cell phones.
We did that when I was doing the sports show over at HYN.
Marty, anyone?
Marty, thank you. I was sitting doing a UMass basketball game with a couple guys, and everything was on the phone in front of you. You either called the station or the station called you. It actually rang during a basketball game. There's no way you would do a phone call nowadays to get on the air, but that's what it was.
Yeah, I remember particularly covering this one gas leak and going into this restaurant and phoning it in, phoning in the story and hoping they could get it over the air.
Correct.
On the landlines.
Yep.
And then we got cell phones and we could do it. Now I can Zoom from my living room. I a few years ago had lunch with a friend at Pinto's in West Springfield, and a radio colleague of mine came in and decided to interview this guy, whips out a smartphone, and in the middle of lunch does an interview and filters it out, and he runs it on his network a couple of days later. You would never know that we were sitting live in a restaurant.
It's crazy. Radio. It's crazy. The phone you carry around in your pocket can get you through everything.
Well, we should probably talk a little more about the Boys and Girls Club.
I know. We're kind of reminiscing here.
We could spend hours talking about our lives in radio. But what are the challenges that the Boys and Girls Club of Westfield will experience in this upcoming year? Be it funding, accessibility, visibility?
The checklist, I would say D, all of the above. Everything that you go into running an organization happen down at the club too. Attendance is always, we could always use more kids. That's fine. We do have a limit, but very rarely every day do we have a limit of 300 kids that are just in the license, not counting the teen center, the teens that are also in the building. So there's always that. There's always people understanding, again, and I hate to harp on it, but understand what goes on in the building. There's something there for everybody. Sometimes it's, the Boys and Girls Club, that's not for me. Well, you don't know if it's for you because it's not what it was when you were a kid. So bring your kid down and see what it's like. They may love it, they may not, and that's fine. But give us a chance to tell them that, hey, they are going to love it. And by the way, it'll work with your schedule, and we'll make sure that they're just not sitting there doing nothing. We're gonna entertain them, but we're also going to educate them. Everything that we do in that building is geared towards educating the students, just to carry on the school day, but not in a school setting. You're not going to be sitting at a desk doing everything, but things that you're going to do, you're going to like to do, but it's all part of your education that you're carrying on through the Westfield Public Schools too, or St. Mary's or whoever. People think that you have to pay to go. Yeah.
I know some of your programs are subsidized, but what does the membership entail?
The teen membership, so everybody 13 and over is $50 a year. So, you guys do the math. And we do have some that say, well, we'll work with them. We don't tell people they can't come. Okay, so we'll figure something out. With the licensed, some of them get vouchers. A majority of the kids that are in the program get a voucher, so they may get a full voucher and there's no payment whatsoever. They may have some type of parent fee, but it's usually very minimal. It's a couple bucks a week. There may be somewhere $25 a week, maybe as much as $50. Again, that's another one that we can sit and talk with people. If you want to come to the club, we'll make sure that it happens. We don't turn kids away.
And how can people learn about the programs and services and the admission?
The best way to do it, to start with it, is to go to the website. It lists everything by category, by grades, actually, also. So bgcwestfield.org is your best first step. And then if there's more questions, if somebody has a question on any of the programs, call the club, and we'll make sure you're talking to the person either that's in charge of that program or somebody who's involved with the program. So don't sit there and say you don't know what goes on in the club, because it's very easy. We would love to bring you down and show you what goes on.
For people that are new to Westfield or in the surrounding area, where is the club?
The club is situated right between the middle school and right behind the Amelia Park ice rink.
Okay, so it's in downtown Westfield.
Downtown Westfield.
And if a child goes to elementary school, or how do they get there after school?
The school bus. We have a deal with, we are a stop for a certain number of elementary schools that will drop them right at the club. If they come before, because we do before school and after school. So if you come to the before school program, we will bus you to your school on time. If you're just coming for the after school, some of the students will be picked up by our own bus and bus driver. If not, the Westfield Public School buses will drop them right at our door.
Well, Bo Sullivan, it's always great to have you on.
I love doing this show, Mark. We got to do this more.
We have to do this. As you said, we have to do this more often, and we have to talk with your kids doing High School Musical Junior.
You really should. So let's, October time when everybody's got their lines and everything, and the the part has been given to the kids that are going to play a certain part. I would love to have it come down.
Maybe the spring show will be that the great broadcast of 1944. There's some Broadway show of that. Maybe there's a junior edition.
Maybe
somebody can play Junior Mark and Junior Bo. And that wraps up this edition of On the Mark TV and Radio. Peter Coles has been our chief engineer. We will see you next week.
When I think of home, I think of a place where there's love overflowing. I wish I was home, I wish I was back there with the things I've been knowing. When that makes the tall grass bend into leaning, suddenly the that fall have a meaning, sprinkling the sea makes it all